The dining room looked exactly the same heavy chairs, same polished oak tables, same soft jazz playing from the corner speaker, just like every Thanksgiving since I was 12. Mom had made her signature roasted squash, and Dad carved the turkey with the same surgical precision he used back in the OR. For a brief moment, I almost believed that maybe, just maybe, everything was fine. Then, as he handed me the mashed potatoes, Dad asked, "Is the $2,000 enough each month?" My fork slipped from my hand. I blinked. "What money?" I asked. Silence. The music faded. Dad's smile disappeared as he looked to Mom, but she avoided his eyes. "I don't understand," I said softly. "I haven't received anything." His voice sharpened. "Leona?" She calmly dabbed her mouth and said, "I thought it would be better used elsewhere." "Better used?" His voice rose. "You told me you were handling the transfers." "I did." "To who?" he demanded. Mom's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water. "Soraya's program is more expensive. She needs it more. You know how hard it is to break into fashion. It's competitive, unforgiving, and Iris is just supposed to survive on scraps while our other daughter walks down Rodeo Drive," Dad snapped. "Byron," she tried, but it was too late. He turned to me, his voice softer now. "Since August." I shook my head. "I asked once. Mom said there wasn't anything left after tuition." His shoulders dropped. "I thought you were okay." "I've been working nights," I said. "Tutoring, bartending, skipping meals, but sure, I'm fine." Mom stood up. "Don't do this here, it's Thanksgiving." But Dad didn't move. He just kept looking at me, like he was seeing me clearly for the first time in years. "I need some air," I said, rising. The hallway was too familiar, too narrow. I stepped outside, jacket clutched tight, trying to breathe. The fall semester became a blur of long days and longer nights. I packed my schedule so full that there was no room left to think. Morning anatomy labs, afternoon tutoring, and bar shifts that ended long after midnight. I kept telling myself it was temporary, just until I caught up. Just until rent cleared. Just until I could breathe. I skipped breakfast most days. Lunch was a protein bar and black coffee between buildings. Dinner, instant ramen or whatever pastries the campus cafe threw out at the end of the night. My shoes were splitting at the soles. I stapled them shut during a Friday shift. Eventually, my body gave up pretending. I remember it so clearly. A tray of drinks in my hand, music pounding, someone waving me over, and then heat, then nothing. When I opened my eyes, there was a white ceiling, a beeping monitor, and an IV in my arm. The nurse asked if there was anyone she should call. "No," I said. My bar manager told me later that he had called my parents after the ambulance came. "No answer," he said. Left messages. Figured they'd show. They didn't. 2 days later, my lab partner Callan showed up without warning. I hadn't given him my address, but somehow he found me. He brought a bag of groceries and a pan of baked ziti. "You look like you're disappearing," he said, placing the food on my tiny counter. I sat at the edge of my bed, hoodie tight, legs folded. "I'm fine," I told him. He didn't argue. He just handed me a plate and sat across from me in silence. I took a bite. It was warm. It was real. And I had to stop myself from crying over a forkful of noodles. That night, I slept for 12 straight hours. The next morning, I checked my phone. 2 messages from Mom. The first, "Glad you're doing okay. Can you send Soraya the name of that skincare brand you liked?" The second, "Don't forget to eat." I deleted both. Later that week, Soraya posted a video from a brunch spot in West Hollywood. Her face was lit by perfect sunlight. The caption read, "No better way to start the day. Thanks, Mom." I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened my banking app. The crack running across the screen made everything look slightly distorted, like even the pixels were tired of pretending. I scrolled anyway. Another post. This time a rooftop lounge, velvet chairs, gold-rimmed cocktails. She wore a cream silk Dior dress. Her hair swept up in a style that probably cost more than my week's groceries. The caption said, "Mom always knows exactly what I need. Brunch, lifestyle, gifted." I locked my phone and set it down, screen first. The ceiling above my mattress had started to peel. The mini fridge hummed constantly in the corner. I hadn't bought vegetables in 3 weeks. A month ago, I had emailed Mom asking if she could help me get a new anatomy atlas. Mine was falling apart. Pages missing, water stained from a spilled cup of coffee. She replied the next day, "That's a luxury, Iris, you'll have to make do." That same week, Soraya posted her new Balenciaga boots. "Thanks to my amazing mom for always supporting the dream," the caption read. I wasn't angry. Not exactly, just hollowed out. Like the part of me that used to try and explain the unfairness had finally gone silent. I wasn't asking to be spoiled, I just wanted to stop rationing Tylenol. I picked up my phone again. Soraya's latest story was a video. Her laughing, hair blowing, standing on a balcony with the city behind her. Jazz played in the background. I watched it 3 times. Then, I turned on the camera. The light in my room was too dim. Still, I took a picture. Cracked nails, calloused fingers. The same gray hoodie I'd been wearing for days. No caption. I didn't post it. Instead, I opened my contacts and scrolled to her name. I hadn't called Soraya in months. Most of our conversations were one-line texts. Always me reaching out. I stared at her name, then pressed the call button. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice was light, breezy. "Iris? Wow, you never call. Everything okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "Just wanted to check in, it's been a while." She laughed. "You miss me?" "Sure," I said, though my voice came out thinner than I meant. She started talking about a recent shoot in Pasadena, the stylist, a shortage of almond milk at her favorite cafe. I let her go on. I wasn't really listening. I was counting unopened bills on my desk. Then I asked, "How do you manage it all financially? LA isn't cheap." "Oh," she said casually, "Mom wires me $3,500, 0 cents every month, sometimes more if I have shoots or events." My mouth went dry. "That's great," I said. "Yeah," she replied. "She just gets it, you know. She says it's about investing in the dream." "Anyway, how are your classes?" I barely heard anything after that. When we hung up, I looked at my reflection in the window. Pale, smaller, like something in me had been peeled back. I opened a new tab and searched for flights. The cheapest one had 2 layovers and a 6-hour delay, but it would get me to Chicago in time for Thanksgiving dinner. I clicked Book Now. Then I closed my laptop, slid the bills to the side, and started packing. We sat at the kitchen table. Sunlight streamed through the same windows I used to press my spelling tests against, hoping for praise. The meal was simple: lentil soup and chicken salad. Not extravagant, but more than I'd had in weeks. I forced down 2 bites before setting my fork aside. Dad looked up. "You've lost weight." I shrugged. "I guess." He frowned. "Are you okay?" "Define okay," I said flatly. "What do you usually eat?" he asked. I didn't hesitate. "Instant noodles, discounted sandwiches, leftovers from work. If I'm lucky." He paused. "Is the 2,000 not covering enough?" I looked at him directly. "There were no transfers, Dad, not one." His fork clattered against the plate. He turned to Mom. "Leona?" She kept her eyes on her bowl. The silence stretched long enough to hurt. Then, calmly, she said, "I've been sending it to Soraya." Dad's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. "She needs it more," Mom continued. "She's in fashion. It's expensive. There are events, people to meet. She has to maintain a certain image." I blinked. "And I don't need to eat?" She looked at me as if startled that I had spoken. "I'm not saying you don't need help," she replied carefully. "I just thought, you're stronger. You've always managed. Soraya's more sensitive." Dad stood up slowly, like every movement cost something. You told me you were sending it. Every month. For Iris. You let me believe she was fine. Mom's voice rose. She always is fine. Dad looked at me again. This time there was something else in his eyes. Not just shock. It was guilt. I pushed my chair back. I came here for answers, I said. I didn't expect them to be this simple. Mom turned toward me, but I was already down the hallway. Her voice followed me, faint, trying to explain, but I closed the door. That night, Dad knocked. I didn't answer, but he opened the door slowly, like he wasn't sure if he had the right. I couldn't sleep, he said. I keep going over it all. She told me she was sending the money every month. I thought you were okay. I thought you were comfortable. I sat up. She lied, I said quietly. He sat on the edge of my bed. Do you remember when Soraya got her car? I nodded. You told me maybe next year? He exhaled sharply. I said we could only afford one vehicle at the time. She told me you didn't mind. I did, I said, plain, undramatic, just true. He nodded slowly. And this past summer, you wanted to do that medical camp. She said you changed your mind. Said you wanted to stay home to save money. I cried for a week when she told me we couldn't afford it, I said. Soraya went to Italy that summer. He looked away, hands tightening in his lap. I should have asked more questions, he said. But she made it easy not to. She always said you were independent, that you didn't need as much, that you'd find a way. She wasn't wrong, I told him. I did find a way. I just shouldn't have had to. His jaw clenched. This isn't about strength, Iris. It's about fairness. And I missed it for too long. Downstairs, they started arguing again. I could hear Mom's voice, high and sharp, saying something about loyalty. Then his voice, lower, angrier, quieter, but more cutting. I closed my eyes. It wasn't about the money anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. The next morning, I found Dad in his study, glasses low on his nose, scrolling through bank records. He didn't hear me come in. When he saw me, he said, Iris, I need you to know I didn't just believe your mother. I handed her access to the trust, the one set up for you and Soraya, split evenly. I thought it was locked until you turned 25, but apparently she's been diverting funds to a separate account in Soraya's name only. He rubbed his forehead. 250,000, so far. Something shifted inside me. Not shock. Confirmation. What now? I asked. I've already called the attorney, he said. We're starting the process to reverse the transactions. It'll take time. I nodded. That was all I could do. That night their voices rose again. Louder, sharper, messier. You didn't even ask me, Dad shouted. That money was for both our daughters. She needs it more, Mom snapped. I did what was best for her, he said. Not for us, not for Iris. I stood at the top of the stairs. Hearing him say my name like that, loud, defended, not dismissed, sent something through me I didn't have words for. I trusted you, he said. His voice broke. And you stole from our own child. I turned away before I could hear her answer. I already knew what it would sound like. 2 days later, Soraya called. Her voice was clipped, tense. Mom told me I'm only getting $1,000 a month now. Is that true? Yeah, I said. Dad's handling the finances now. She exhaled sharply. I can't live on that. Rent, classes, materials. I know, I said. Silence. She waited for me to offer something. I didn't. Do you really think this is fair? She asked. I think it's overdue. She hung up. That night, I caught Mom slipping an envelope into her purse. She didn't see me standing in the hallway, but I knew exactly what she was doing. Later, Dad found out too. He didn't yell, didn't raise his voice. He just stood across from her in the kitchen and said, I can't do this anymore. She stared back, unblinking. I was trying to protect her. And who was protecting Iris? he asked. "Iris is fine," she said. "She's always been fine." "You keep saying that," he said, exhausted, like it justifies everything. "I just wanted the best for Soraya." He shook his head. "And what did Iris get?" She didn't answer. The next morning, he called a lawyer. By the end of the week, he had filed for legal separation. The house felt different. Not broken, just still, like something cracked wide enough to let air in, for the first time in years. Mom moved like she was underwater. She folded laundry, cooked dinner, rearranged shelves, but she didn't talk to me, not really. I stayed 2 more nights. The silence between rooms stretched, long and heavy. On my last day, I zipped my suitcase shut and turned to find her standing in the doorway, arms crossed, uncertain, like she didn't know if she should say something. In the end, she said nothing. Back in Philadelphia, the days felt different, lighter, somehow. I dropped 2 of my shifts. The bar let me keep weekends. I kept tutoring because I liked the quiet logic of explaining things to people. It made the world feel just a little more manageable. The rest of the time I studied, slept, and ate food that didn't come from a packet. My grades climbed, not because I suddenly got smarter, but because I could finally breathe. I bought myself a new pair of sneakers. Not expensive, just whole, intact. They felt like something I earned twice, once in work, once in worth. Soraya started texting more often. At first it was just habit. Then it started feeling like maybe something else. She'd send me pictures of outfits she styled for clients at the boutique where she'd started working part-time. "They're not designer, but I like them more," she wrote once. "They actually feel like mine." I didn't know what to say, so I just said, "I'm glad." One night she called me out of nowhere. Her voice was quieter than usual. "I think I finally see it now," she said. "See what?" I asked. "What it cost you. All of it." There was a pause, long, honest, like she was letting the silence speak. "I didn't want to believe it," she admitted, "because if I did, I'd have to admit that Mom made things easier for me, and that meant she made things harder for you." I leaned back in my chair, staring up at the ceiling. "I don't need you to feel guilty," I told her. "Just don't pretend it was fair." "I won't," she said. That was all we said for a while. I could hear the sound of glass clinking gently on her end, probably tea. Not wine. Soraya hated alcohol, said it tasted like burnt air. I always thought that was kind of poetic. She cleared her throat. "Are you going home for the holidays?" "Not sure," I replied. "Dad's going," she said. "I am too." I hesitated. Then she added, "Maybe we could go together." I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. It's been a year since that dinner. I'm still in Philadelphia, still in school, but everything feels steadier now. I sleep, I eat, I study without watching the clock like it's a threat. My professors noticed the change. So did I. Soraya is still in LA, but she's not the same girl who used to post every brunch. She works at a boutique now that promotes sustainable fashion. She redesigns pieces from leftover fabric, talks more about craftsmanship than couture. The pride in her voice isn't loud, but it's real. Mom works at a home goods store now. She says it's temporary, but I don't ask for details. Our conversations are brief, polite. There's a distance between us that neither of us seems willing or ready to cross. Dad calls every week. Sometimes we talk about school, sometimes we just talk. When he visits, he brings groceries, secondhand books, and listens like time isn't something he has to ration anymore. One evening, as I was leaving the library, Soraya called again. "Thinking about going home for the holidays?" she said. "To see Mom?" I didn't say anything. "Do you want to go together?" she asked. Not for her, not for show, just to do it right this time. There was a long pause, but she didn't fill it. She just waited. And without realizing it, I nodded. "Okay," I said. "Let's go." Christmas didn't come with a grand gesture, just an early flight, 2 carry-ons, and a quiet knock at the front door. Soraya and Dad walked in first. I followed a few steps behind. Mom opened the door in a plain sweater I didn't recognize, something slightly worn. Her hair had more gray than last year. She smiled faintly. It didn't reach all the way. We sat around the same table where everything had cracked open. The food was simple. Roasted vegetables, dry turkey, Dad slightly overcooked, and a store-bought pie. No one brought up the past. But no one pretended it hadn't happened either. We passed dishes. Soraya complimented the stuffing. Dad asked about my classes. Mom said she was still getting used to retail hours. It wasn't warm, but it was honest. Later that night, I unpacked in my childhood bedroom. The walls looked smaller, or maybe I'd just grown. I reached into my bag and pulled out a plain white envelope. My tuition receipt. I slid it into the drawer beside a folded note Dad had written months ago. It read, "This is yours, not because you earned it, but because I finally saw you." I read it one more time before closing the drawer. For a long time I believed love had to be proven, that silence meant strength, and strength meant not needing anything, but I don't believe that anymore. I believe in being seen, and I believe some stories don't end with healing. They begin with it.